This is another prelude of the melody and harmony variety, as you've seen before, like the B flat major, the F sharp major, where the theme, what makes it more interesting, are these pads. The harmony is given by these gorgeous, gorgeous chords, repeated, lying under a pedal. I like to use the word pads if you're into electronic music. It's kind of the same, has the same vibe, the same feel for me. Unfortunately, this is a sort of piece where it just doesn't sound good unless it's on a pretty decent piano where you have nice resonance, the pedal isn't too loud, the sound isn't dinky, because you really want to have this gorgeous, gorgeous resonance over which the melody floats. So let's talk about, in this piece, how to get that technique down required to really make those repeated chords sound very good. Otherwise, it's not that difficult of a piece. You just memorize a harmony and a melody, and you just got to execute on those repeated chords. So, first things first, the technique required to not get tired is very important. You are repeating with both hands these pretty big chords with a lot of notes. I mean, this has, what, 6 notes in it? Non-stop. And if you're practicing, you might just be going 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, just repeating chords like this. The important thing here is to not... You can use a lot of muscles when you're playing the piano, from the really small ones in the fingers to really big ones, like your back muscles, shoulder muscles. What you want to do here is give a rest to these very tiny muscles, which get tired a lot easier, and use the bigger muscles, which are stronger, more resistant. So, I mean, I'm not playing like this, but I am executing these repeated chords with the bigger muscles. I'm holding my hand, not rigid, it's not a claw, just enough rigidity so that I can use these bigger muscles to push down these keys. And not just that, not only am I using these big muscles, and not only am I ensuring that the little muscles are in use only as little as possible, between every chord, I'm kind of relaxing. It's like this constant, with these little muscles, like this constant switch between relaxation, so you don't get tired. I mean, you can't keep your hands cramped in a claw nonstop. So it's a constant switch between relaxation, a bit of tension so that I can push down with these big muscles, relaxation, tension, relaxation, tension, relaxations, tension, relaxation. Say that very fast multiple times. Again, this is for the little muscles. The big muscles, I mean, I can execute this pretty much all day and you really don't get tired. It's in the hand and sometimes in the wrist as well where you can get kind of a crampy feeling if you've got this rigid claw. This is technique that you can practice not just in this piece. This is true for all pieces, all chords, when you're trying to play them all with the same volume. But in this piece, it's especially important because you're just constantly practicing chords. So you need to be able to do this and not get tired for many minutes at a time. Once you have that technique down, the next thing is to put these pads, these chords, under a pedal. And get used to the sound, the way it swells up, the way it slowly dies down. And create a bedding, a soft bedding over which the melody is going to flow. Sometimes I like playing this piece just with the chords and kind of singing the melody, or in my head, or with my voice. Doom, doom. It's a hard melody. Doom, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum. Do, 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 do. Wow, I really butchered that. Sometimes it's a bit better. So really get used to the feeling of these repeated chords underneath the pedal. Because the pedal adds up a lot of sound, it can get a little too loud. So be very careful. You got to understand how hard you can press down on these keys so that you maintain this nice soft bedding and it doesn't get too loud. And now to the tricky part. There's 2 things you need to do. Once you have this nice bedding, you don't get tired playing these chords. start adding in the bass. You got to get used to being able to go from the chord to a bass note back to the chord. This is one reason why Chopin had a lot of songs with a lot of black keys. Whoops. It's a little easier to land on these bass notes. That was a pretty weak G. There we go, it's a bit better. I mean, this is pretty cool just as is. Oh, I missed that. Requires a lot of concentration. Once you can, well, not once, that's one thing you need to be able to do, is to practice chords, bass chord, bass chord, bass chord. I mean, throughout the whole piece. I'm just using the first two chords of the piece, but there's a lot of them. The next thing is to get used to throwing in the melody and making sure that it floats over the top of the bedding, but also combines with it well. So on this dominant chord, the E flat, let's just focus just on the E flat. Sometimes I like just doing random melodies and just throwing them in, making sure that without the melody I've got constant pads going. And again, you can do this throughout the entire piece. Pick any part of the piece and try to get the chords with the melody. Next chord. And then the hardest thing, I mean, if this wasn't hard enough, is switching between the chords. Because they're pretty big chords with a lot of notes, and sometimes you even need to switch your hands like this, you really need to nail down every change of chords. From the 1 to the 5, this is one of the easiest ones. Let's go to the 4. Let's go 5, 4. Doing this with the bass as well is also highly, highly recommended. So switch the chords with a bass note as well. Go to the 4. Let's go to the 5. Oof. Do that again. From the 4 to the 5. The good thing, the one nice thing about this piece is that it kind of, it's one of the few pieces where just focusing on technique really is almost all you need to do. I mean, no, I take that back, I take that back. Also, the difference between, as we talked before, the difference between technique and musicality, it's not as clear of a distinction as it actually is. But I do feel like, I don't know, maybe for some reason this piece just kind of sings to me very well. So as long as I can nail the technique down, it works out pretty well. So to recap, when you're practicing this, ensure that you have these constant chords going without getting tired. Use big muscles, use your little muscles as small as possible, and try to keep them as relaxed as often as possible. Get used to playing the chords underneath the pedal. Add in melodies. When you add in the melody, if I didn't make this clear enough, try to not affect the pads. Keep the chords at the same volume, the same vibe. and the melody punctuating through. Add in some bass notes. And practice switching between chords. God, so gorgeous. I love this piece. This was the favorite prelude of some, I think, a countess or something. I forget. I don't even know where I even read that. Beautiful piece. Love it a lot. Let's finish by talking about the harmony just a little bit. We haven't done this in a while. This is a good piece for testing out your knowledge of harmony. It also helps knowing the harmony so that you don't get lost in it, especially the B section and the C section does some what seems like weird things, but they're pretty straightforward, actually. Let me just give you just as a breather, as an introduction. If you get bogged down with trying to figure out all these chords, the 2s and the 4s and the 5s and whatever, go back to basics. You should know the scale, your A flat major scale, and just take every chord of the scale in order. And eventually it will, I don't know, it will become second nature that in this key, the 5th is E flat, the 4 is D flat. That this B flat is a 2, which often goes to the 5, which is an E flat, which goes back to the 1, which is an A flat. So every time you get bogged down, just go back to these basics. So the beginning, the A section is, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The chords are so visible that we start on the 1, and then we go, it's interesting because the melody starts on the 5. Back to the 1. Then we go to the 4. And then 5, 4, 5. And now we get to this F7 chord. It looks weird, but it's not, don't think of it an F7 or as like a major 6 chord or something like that. Think of it, this is the dominant, this is the 5 chord of B flat minor. So this is this A7 chord wants to resolve to B flat. All right, let's really feel that. B flat minor, this is the 2 in our key of A flat. Remember, if you're getting bogged down, just go back to basics. What's the 1, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in your key of A flat? The 2 chord, as you've seen so many times before, we usually get a 2, 5, 1. It's like a resolution. It brings us back home to the A flat. So this kind of strange major 6 chord, this F7, is really just a chord that resolves to the 2 so that we can go back home with a 2, 5, 1. Now the A section is actually in 2 parts. The same melody repeats twice, and it's the same chord, same melody, except for this ending. So after this 5 of 2 to the 2, it's true that at the second time around, when we want to close the A section and really go back, close it by ending in our home key of A flat, it's true that after this 2 chord, sure enough, we have a 2 to the 5 to the 1. It's a little funky because on the 2 chord, I mean, this is clearly a 2. But we have this E flat in the bass. I've seen this in a lot of romantic repertoire stuff. I mean, this E flat in the bass is also the bass of our 5 chord. So even though we're on the 2, Chopin is already kind of prepping us for this resolution by having this E flat in the bass to this 5 chord to the 1. But the first time around in the A section, instead of giving us a 2, 5, 1, because it's just a halfway point and we want to continue the melody, continue the A section, the first time around it resolves to the to the 5. So after this F7 to the 2 chord, we do, it's just a flurry of chords. 2, 5 to the 4 chord, to the 1 chord, A flat, to the 5. So it goes by very quickly. This is the F7, which resolves to the 2, and then we go 2, 5, 1, 5. And the second time around is just a regular 2-5-1. So from the F7 to the 2 chord, 2, 5, 1. Now in the B section and the C section, Chopin modulates. It's not really modulation so much as he just throws another tonality, another chord at us. I think this might be the reason maybe why Glenn Gould was really down on Chopin. I mean, I don't agree with him I like Chopin as much as I rag on him. But it is true that it hits us just almost out of the blue. However, there's a way to kind of tease out this modulation. So we end on this A flat, B section. This A flat chord, A flat note, if we hold on to it, this is going to become the 3 chord of E major. So from this A flat major to this E major, we have this common chord, this common note. If I just cycle through them like this, there is kind of a continuity there. Although in the context of the piece, it does feel a little jarring. But the point is, we've got this common note between them. The same is true in the C section as well, just in a different way. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. Now, both the B section and the C section is just a bunch of 5-1s. It's just a bunch of from the 5 chord to the 1 chord for all of the weirdness that goes on in it. So in the B section, we're on this E chord. What does an E resolve to? It resolves to A major. And then we have a A major chord, a G sharp major. What does G sharp major go to? It resolves to C sharp minor. This continues in the C section as well. When we start on this B7, what does B resolve to? It resolves to E. Even in this super chromatic section, every one of these pairs of chords is just a 5-1. The thing that the coolest thing in here, in my opinion, is in the B section where, so we land on this E7 chord, and essentially Chopin makes us move down chromatically to bum, 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 bum. You see, we started on E, we went down to D sharp, and then to D, and it keeps going chromatically. So the question is, how do you go from this E7 chord, how do you move down to a D sharp major? We move down chromatically, but we want to make it a little more, we want to use a 5-1. What's the 5 of D sharp? The 5 of D sharp major is A sharp, right? Excuse me, what am I doing? I'm doing something weird. There we go, okay. So before this D sharp chord, we want to throw in a kind of A sharp. Now take your A sharp 7, flat the 5, and look what we have. We have an E major triad over an A sharp major triad. I mean, this A sharp, as we've discussed, this is the dominant of 5 of D sharp, so this is how we resolve to D sharp. But because in our A sharp 7 chord, we flatted the 5th, we have this E triad, this E major triad over here, which, I mean, we were just on an E major chord. So it's so interesting. We're on this E major, we hold on to part of that E major, but we move down the other notes so that we have an A sharp chord with that flat 5. So this is kind of like a 5 to the D sharp, and it just repeats. When we go down chromatically, the same pattern happens a lot. There's a name for these chords. They're also, they kind of have to do with secondary dominance. There's like a Wikipedia page for them. I'm not that well versed in theory, but I did notice that what we have here essentially is a 5 chord to get us to the D sharp, but the 5 chord has a flat 5, so that there's a lot of common notes with the chord we were at before. Okay, so that's it for this piece, some harmonic analysis. Hopefully this is going to help you to memorize the piece. But the most important thing is that technique. So remember, big muscles, use the little muscles as small as possible. Just as long as you can repeat those often, throw in some bass notes, throw in a melody, and just keep those pads very gorgeous, you are all set. All right, let's play the piece.